and in their study of the Word as they've been working their way from Genesis 1 all the way through. So for our last 9 weeks, we have been studying the final week. And if you showed up today wanting palm branches in your hand in a Palm Sunday service, I hate to break it to you, but I'm not doing a Palm Sunday service. I did it 8 weeks ago. It's on YouTube. We'd love for you to go listen to it. You can have it there. That's where it is. So I'm sorry to disappoint. However, I am really excited today about what we're preaching on because I've never preached on this. I've never heard anybody preach on this. Today we're talking about what we will call Silent Saturday. It's the day that's overlooked in the Bible. It's a day that we read past between the heartbreak of Friday and the hope of Sunday, but what happens on Saturday? Well, we don't really think about it. Saturday is the day when everything is quiet, and honestly, it all feels like it fell apart. See, if we're not careful when we read the Bible, we fail to realize how much time takes place between the verses that we read or the chapters that we read. We don't realize that Abraham's story that took us 10 minutes to read took him 25 minutes to live. We don't think about that Paul had to spend the next day in prison after he wrote, well, I'm loving what I'm doing in prison because I'm making an impact on all the guards around me, but yet a week later he was still in prison. And a month later, he was still in prison. We don't even think about the travel time it would have taken Jesus to get from one place to the next. We just assume, well, he immediately did that, and then immediately he did that, and we forget all of the time that takes place. In the Bible, we look at Silent Saturday as a day of waiting. A day of waiting. Waiting for Sunday, but we know Sunday is coming. It's a day of quiet, of reflection, of waiting from the cross to the tomb to be empty. And waiting's hard for us, right? I hate waiting. Maybe y'all could probably pick that out about me. I don't like waiting in traffic. I don't like waiting in line. Like, I don't want to go to Target, not for political reasons, but because they only ever have 2 self-checkout lanes and the line is forever long. It's awful. I don't get it. Walmart is beating them in that, all right? I don't like waiting. Carlin's been waiting for a pair of shoes to show up, and it's just stalled out somewhere in a regional facility center. She checks the door last night at 10 o'clock, this morning at 7:30. She was just checking, hoping. Waiting is miserable. Waiting for a phone call, waiting for test results, waiting for that wedding day that these two are excited about, that they're not paying attention to me. That's okay. Waiting for a graduation, which is coming and hopefully comes sooner. Waiting for a baby and going, gosh, 9 months is a long time. We don't like waiting. But here's what I want you to understand. The followers of Jesus on that Saturday were not waiting. It was over. The followers of Jesus were not waiting for Sunday. We read it with the knowledge of what happens on Sunday. They had no anticipation that he was coming back. They weren't waiting. They were hopeless. They were dealing with the reality as it was setting in that his life is over and he will be no more. They were struggling through that reality. They weren't waiting. Perhaps they were going, we should have protected him better. We shouldn't have let him come to Jerusalem. We should have stood up when they arrested him. We shouldn't have been afraid. We shouldn't have abandoned him. We should have thrown a riot. We should have gotten a mob together. We just had so much going on. Maybe they're feeling that evil is just too strong and they could not overcome it and that it was just too much. They are hopeless, discouraged, and confused in this moment because everything they had given their life to for the last 3 years now seems to be over. They weren't waiting. It was done. So as we turn to Saturday, it's interesting. Only 2 of the gospel writers. Now the gospels are kind of the story of Jesus as he was living, and we have 4 gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. But 2 of the gospel writers avoid Saturday. Say nothing about it. Luke and John mention nothing about what happens on Saturday. Matthew tells us this. Matthew chapter 27, verses 62 through 66. It says this. The next day, this is Saturday, that is, after the day of preparation, the chief priest and the Pharisees, these are the people that killed Jesus, the ones that had him crucified, they gathered before Pilate, the one that gave them the okay to do that, and they said, "Sir, we remember how this impostor, this liar, this deceiver, how he said while he was alive that after 3 days he will rise." They're the only ones considering what Jesus had said. They're the only ones thinking over, oh yeah, he said something about rising on 3 days. But they weren't believing it. So they go to him and they say, remember when he said that? "Therefore, order the tomb to be made secure until the 3rd day, lest his disciples go and steal him away and tell the people he has risen." They don't want a Weekend at Bernie situation happening, okay? They don't want somebody propping up a dead guy and saying, "Oh, look, he's alive." But when you raise from the dead, you can't talk really well, and you can't open your eyes much, and you can't lean to the side. So we're just going to claim that. Or the tomb is empty. Woohoo, look. I told you he was right. They're saying, no. We don't want that to happen. So will you please station some guards? Pilate, verse 65, says, "You have a guard of soldiers. Go, make it as secure as you can." So they went and they made the tomb secure by sealing the stone and setting a guard. That's all Matthew tells us that happens on Saturday. The Jewish leaders don't want this idea of Jesus to gain any legs, because if it gains legs now, it's only going to get worse. He says, "Then the fraud," verse 64, I missed this part, "and the last fraud will be worse than the first." There's no belief. There's just like, we want to shut this down completely, and we don't want to leave any space for it to be continued. That's what Matthew talks about, not the disciples, not a voice of God, not an angel appearing. He talks about the people that killed Jesus wanting to make sure he stayed dead. Mark 16 is our other passage. Mark 16, verse 1. This is a follower of Jesus. We have one verse. When the Sabbath was passed, okay, so Jesus was killed on Friday afternoon. He was taken off the cross, and he was hastily buried in a nearby tomb by a man that owned a new tomb. And Jesus was put in there in a fast way because sundown was approaching, and once sundown hit, the Sabbath would start, and there was no more working. So Joseph and Nicodemus bury Jesus. They put him in the tomb, but they weren't able to do a full-on proper burial. And so the women watch where he is buried, and they have plans to go and to make it more appropriate later. So when the Sabbath has passed, this is sundown Saturday night, Mary Magdalene, Mary the mother of James, and Salome, they bought spices so they might go and anoint him. What does that mean? They bought spices to go put in the room where he was buried so that the decaying of his body doesn't create a really unbearable stench. Because there's no hope. There's no waiting for Sunday. It's over. Everything we gave our life to, everything that we followed, everything that we believed in, now it seems to be done. This morning, I want us to put on a little bit of spiritual imagination, but I also want us to place ourselves in the story of the disciples on that silent Saturday. The day where they are sitting in confusion, they're sitting in fear, they're sitting in what's next. I have 3 words that I want to use to guide us for this sermon today. Here are the emotions I think they feel. 1, I think they are afraid. The scriptures will point to it. 2, they felt abandoned. And 3, they felt alone. So let's break those down. Afraid. We see that the disciples honestly were afraid. John chapter 20, verse 19. Kendall's going to throw it on the screen for us. It says this. On the evening of that day, so this is Sunday, the first day of the week, the doors were locked where the disciples were. Why? For fear of the Jews. So we can go back to afraid now, Kendall. The disciples are gathered. They have heard, they have watched, they have known that Jesus is dead, he is buried, and they are terrified. They have locked themselves up in a room, hidden away, because why? They fear they are next. So they are hiding out. They're afraid of any knock on the door. They're afraid of any commotion on the street. They're afraid that a mob is going to form and they are going to grab them and do to them just what they did to Jesus. So they have locked themselves up in a room in fear of the Jews. A month ago, I was in Amsterdam with Carlin, and we were in the Anne Frank secret annex. A place where Anne and 7 others were hiding out in fear of the Nazi Gestapo that was coming to find every Jew in Amsterdam and send them to a concentration camp. 7 of the 8 people that hid with Anne Frank died before the war was over. There was a great fear. That's the best picture that I can see in my mind of what the disciples must be feeling, because they are terrified. What is going to happen to us? Remember, Peter was afraid to even acknowledge knowing Jesus to a young girl because he was so afraid. What they did to him, they are going to do to us. Fear is a real emotion that many of us struggle with. You may not fear your life, but you may fear that life's going to be over if that happens. The fear of, man, if I lose my job, I don't know what's going to happen. It'll all be over. I'm done. I've ruined everything. There's a fear of being found out, because a lot of us have secrets that we want to keep covered. And if anybody ever found out what I was doing, where I've been, my past, my history, my thoughts, there's a lot of people that are terrified of messing up or showing any imperfections. And so you don't just have to be made up on your face, but you're made up in every part of your life. It's why you clean before the housekeeper comes over, right? Because we can't show that we have any imperfections. We were over at the Bernals yesterday, and Maddie said, oh yeah, I spent all day cleaning because company was coming over. We want to show, and it looked great. It was awesome. But we want to show, right? Every one of us feel that pressure. We fear that we've done too much wrong, that we've sinned too much. We fear what others think. We fear that we've wasted our life. We fear that we've failed our kids. We fear that we haven't done enough. We fear that our marriage is in shambles and it's going to crumble. We fear that people are going to leave us and abandon us. We have lots of fears. We fear today and we fear tomorrow. When God is silent, like he is on Silent Saturday, fear gets really loud. And in the silence, fear puts our imagination into overdrive. And the worst case scenarios begin to fill up in our mind. And fear doesn't whisper within our brain, it screams. But what about that? That could happen. And it can be completely overwhelming. Are you living in fear right now? Constant fear, overwhelming fear. Fear of God, not in the healthy reverence, but fear that he no longer loves you and there's no way he could ever like you. Not only did they have fear, but I believe they felt abandoned. Their leader was gone. They were abandoned. What's next? Where do we go? What's going to happen now? We have nobody to follow. We have nobody leading us. We're just kind of wandering aimlessly, like, what do we do now? There's so much of that feeling. I've shared with you guys a lot of stories about how dumb I was when I was younger and how dumb I am now, right? We've shared a lot of really bad stories about Jordan. Carlin said, I can't believe you're going to share this one. I said, okay, I need to, because it sets the point. When we were in college, we were dating, and me, Carlin, and a few of my friends were driving around, and for some reason we stopped at Lowe's. I believe it was because Carlin needed to go to the bathroom. So we pull into Lowe's. Carlin runs in to go to the bathroom, and then I get the bright idea, the funny idea, that I'm going to pull away to like the side of the building where she can't see. Madison knows me well enough that, yeah, you know that I would do something like this. I pull along to the side, I turn off the car, turn off the lights, and we watch. She comes out from Lowe's and she's looking around. She's, seeing if I'm over there, kind of just trying to catch anybody's car that looks like mine. She was out there for probably 10, 15 seconds, which probably felt like a minute, right? And then she takes out her cell phone, and this is before smartphones, okay? There's no Find My, anything like that. This is a brick cell phone, and she starts typing in my number or reaching me on the contacts, and I send it to voicemail. And I send it to voicemail. And I send it to voicemail. And then she sends a text, and texts were costly back then, all right? You kids don't understand. That was a 10-cent commitment. Jordan, where are you? Eventually, I go and I pick her up, and I'm just laughing, giggly over this great practical joke that I just played. She was not giggling at all. She was really upset. She was really kind of scared. She was 10 miles away from where she lived. There was no Uber in that day. You couldn't just type in and get a Lyft driver to pick you up. I don't know that we had yellow cabs in Tuscaloosa. She got in the car and was just a mess because of the fear of feeling abandoned, even for 3 or 4 minutes, rocks your soul. If you've ever gotten lost somewhere or gotten separated from your family and you're going, where are they? If a kid's ever been lost and you're going, I can't find them, that's overwhelming. Think about an abandoned house. The weeds are growing up everywhere. The wood is rotting. The roof is caving. It's an utter mess. I believe the disciples are in that same state. We're abandoned. Everything we've given our life to, everything that we were following is done. We gave up our jobs for this. We left our families for this. We've not been supporting our family, like we've not been able to support them. We've gotten far behind now. What are we going to do? Are you in a place of feeling abandoned right now? By family? By friends? Maybe by a spouse? That they're planning their days without you? Maybe by your kids? That they're so busy they don't even pick up your phone call anymore? Maybe you're feeling abandoned at your job, that they're just trying to get rid of you, that the product and the software and the technology is just leaving you behind. I even had a few people, in a sense, say in the last few months and even the last week going, I'm feeling somewhat abandoned by my church. I'm sorry. That's not the intent. When you feel abandoned, you feel like no one cares about me, no one sees me, no one even knows I exist, that I'm all alone, and maybe some of you feel abandoned by God right now. That all these plans that you think make so much sense, and yet He's not providing any answers. More problems keep arising than solutions. More challenges keep showing up, and you cannot get ahead, and you feel like you're drowning, and you feel abandoned, that God is nowhere to be found. I'm sorry. We're going to end with how do we handle that. The last emotion that I feel like they have is they feel alone. God is dead, or at least it seems so. God's plan failed. Everything that we've given our life to is over. Where can I turn? Who cares about me? Who's with me? There's nobody there to support us. We were a 12-man band, and now we're just stuck. Loneliness is a real thing in our world. A study was done by the Gallup poll in 2023 that found this out. 20% of Americans felt serious loneliness a lot yesterday. 20% of Americans that they interviewed felt extreme loneliness, that they felt this a lot, not just this week, yesterday. So if 1/5 felt that yesterday, could we, with honest belief, say about 50% feel that weekly? That's a really terrible place to be. To feeling alone. To feeling like no one cares, no one knows, no one can help. I share very honestly from this platform every Sunday. Probably too honestly, right? Like that story is not a very good picture of me. Why do I share? One, because I want to demonstrate that this is a safe place to share. But I also want to demonstrate that I stumble and I fall like you, that I am striving and I'm struggling like you, that I feel alone often, that I feel discouraged a lot, that I feel unloved and overlooked, that I see myself as a failure, that I'm a disappointment, that I'm a screw-up. And see, here's the deal. The lies of the enemy only ratchet up when we are alone. The enemy wants to get you alone. Because when you are alone, sin is more tempting. Discouragement is more debilitating when you're alone. Depression can sink its hooks deeper as it tries to keep you alone. Shame and guilt multiply in your mind when you are alone and you cannot share this with anyone. The enemy wants to get you alone. And those same questions he asked Eve in the garden, he starts asking us. Is God really good? Is God real? Is God worth following? Is he worth it? And when we are alone, when life is crashing, it's easy for us to fall into doubt rather than to fall into faith. Notice, people that are struggling in their faith, they oftentimes are stopping attending church. They're pulling away, and they're putting themselves alone, where there is no encouragement, where there is no community, and we're harming ourselves as we continue to pull away. If you don't hear anything today, hear this. As we've looked at Silent Saturday, I want you to hear this. God's silence is not, I don't know how that's typed, is not his absence or his apathy. God's silence does not mean his absence nor his apathy. Sometimes the silence of God is the soil we need to create or to deepen our faith. So I'm going to give you some things to consider. When God is silent, God is working. God is loving. God has a plan. And God has not abandoned you. I'm going to say that again and give you a few more understandings with that. When God is silent, we can know that God is still working even if you don't see it. That he is still loving even if you don't feel it. That he still has a plan even if you don't understand it. And that God has not abandoned you even if you feel it. David wrote a really honest psalm in Psalm 13. It's one of my favorite psalms to look at. It's a psalm of lament, an honest confession to God of your struggles. He says this, "How long, O Lord, will you forget me forever? How long will you hide your face from me? How long must I take counsel in my soul and have sorrow in my heart all the day? How long shall my enemy be exalted over me? Consider and answer me, O Lord my God. Light up my eyes, lest I sleep the sleep of death. Lest my enemies say, I have prevailed over him. Lest my foes rejoice because I am shaken." David is saying, God, I feel abandoned. God, I am afraid. God, I am alone. Where are you, God? I need to hear from you, God, because my enemies are winning. The wicked are prospering and your followers are struggling. God, this doesn't make any sense. Where are you? You need to show up. If you're really God, then prove it. How long will I continue through this struggle and through this shame and through this doubt and through all of these painful situations? God, please answer. But then David gives us his answer. His answer to how long will I experience this? How long will my enemies be exalted? But I have trusted in the steadfast love. My heart rejoice in your salvation. I will sing to the Lord because he has dealt bountifully with me. What do I do when God is silent? When God is silent, I pray to him. When God is silent, I believe in him. When God is silent, I trust him. And when God is silent, I wait for him. Let me give you some more on this one as well. When God is silent, I pray to him. I lean into his promises and I do what he teaches. Ask, and it will be given. When God is silent, do you ever say, God, I need to hear from you because I'm afraid and I feel alone? Please don't abandon me. When God is silent, I believe in him. Even though darkness seems to crowd around me, I am going to look to him and not to what I can accomplish. When God is silent, I trust in him. Even when I don't understand it, I have to remind myself that your ways are higher than mine. That, this door shut. This week, a door shut of something I thought that God was going to open a ministry opportunity for us. And the door shut. And the sad thing about the door shutting is that 80% of the people that could have opened the door wanted to do it. But one would not budge. And the door shut. And immediately I wanted to be discouraged and frustrated and disappointed. But I felt like God really just filled up my soul, and others spoke the same word into me. Because I have another door. Because I have something else. Thank you for trying to go down that door, but I'm going to close it for you and to protect you from it because I got other doors for you that I need you to be walking through. I'll trust him, that his ways are higher. And finally, I'll wait for him because his timing is perfect. It's not my timing, and I don't like to wait. I am super impatient. But I will wait even when God is silent because I know that he has my good in focus and he has a greater plan than I can understand. So are you in a season of silence from God right now? Do you feel what those disciples felt? Afraid, alone, or abandoned? Are you wondering where God is? Because you've given your life to something and he seems to have left you out to dry? Do you feel like you're trying to pursue him and yet everything else in your life is crashing around it? That you can't get ahead even when you're trying to do the right things? Do you feel like you're in a season of silent Saturday right now, afraid, abandoned, and alone? Maybe it's in your marriage. Maybe it's with your future. Maybe it's with a child. Maybe it's a diagnosis or an unanswered prayer and you're going, God, just give me an answer, please. Today, I invite you to step into the opportunity of faith that comes with silence. The opportunity to go, but God, you can. Will you? God, you're good, and this situation isn't. This is an opportunity for us to step into faith. Because the disciples and the followers could have remembered what the Pharisees and the scribes did remember, that Jesus said he was going to rise. And everything Jesus had said to them had happened. When he spoke healing, they were healed. When he spoke truth, it was true. When he cursed a fig tree and said it's going to be dead, it was dead. Everything Jesus had said was true, and yet they forgot the truth that in 3 days I will rise. Maybe this silence is an opportunity for you to have faith. Because the silence of God is not absence or apathy. it may be an opportunity for faith. We don't have to pretend that Saturdays are easy. They're not. Waiting, quiet, silence is not. But as people of the Bible, and people that have Matthew 28, John 21, or John 20, Mark 16, and Luke 24, we know that Sunday is coming. And we know that the silence of Saturday is met with the triumphant roar of Sunday of He is risen. So, on this day of Saturday, I'll just remind you that as we live here in the already, that we know the end, but the not yet, we're not there yet. We're Saturday people. This life of the Christian faith is a Saturday faith. Waiting. Because the cross is empty and the tomb is filled. But it won't be forever. Because Sunday is coming. And Sunday changes everything.